Hello there and welcome back to the channel, my own channel that is, for a change. I've done an immense number of videos of the Pelargonium and Geranium Society in recent weeks, so I thought it was about time I chucked something on my own channel just to keep a bit of interest there going. It's obviously a very busy time, filming this on the 21st of May. Does have to be said that May has actually been really quite warm. It's such a contrast to April. May in southern England has been really warm. It's brought everything on. Everything that has not been stopped for show, and that means giving them a little cut back just to time them to flower for the shows in sort of mid to late June, which is when the majority of them are held. I say the majority, there's not actually that many of them left these days. But anyway, yeah, but any that I've not, well, which is the bulk of them really, that I've not sort of cut back for show, have all started to throw a little bit of bloom now. Even some of the show ones are actually throwing a bit of bloom now, almost. It's amazing really, but they're almost a little bit ahead of where I would want them to be. I think it's 4 weeks, it's Tuesday the 21st, it's 4 weeks on this coming Saturday to the national show. And yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, one or two really beginning to throw some bloom now. That one, for instance, bit of yellow leafing on there, but yeah, you can argue this warmth has maybe pushed them on a bit more than I was wanting. But hey-ho, that's the way it runs, I'm afraid. Now, I've actually just been giving a little bit of tidying up to this big bolero, which is a unique type plant, unique type pelargonium. I've just been giving this a bit of a clean up. It's one of these plants that really does look after itself. It doesn't need hardly anything doing to it whatsoever. They need very little water. Overwater unique types, and they will just, stop growing, curl up and die. They really do not need a lot of watering, so that's something to bear in mind. They thrive on ignorance. This one's just beginning to throw a little bit of bloom. I've actually got a younger version down here which is blooming like crazy. This one, there we are, is a younger version of it, but lovely big blooms. I mean, makes a fantastic display plant. But yeah, they thrive totally on ignorance, need to do very little with them. But because of that, I've just sort of been ignoring this one. So just pulling off a few slightly yellowing leaves. If you do overwater it, you will get a few yellow leaves. But I have been doing this over the last sort of 15 minutes or so, and it's almost done really. I have been doing, as I say, I've been doing a lot of videos of the Pelargonium Society. So head on over to there to see some of the things that I've been up to. I did quite a comprehensive one about Pelargonium standards. I didn't actually pull this one out to show, but this is a real big brute. It's also several years old, 21, so it's an autumn 20 cutting. So it's coming up for 4 years old. So yeah, so there we are. But yeah, that's cleaned up now. It's a really big brute. 2 centimeters across, it's really giant stem in it. I have actually had to re-tie some of the strings on this one because it really is a really thick stem, but I absolutely love it. But yeah, uniques though, so easy to grow. If you want some easy pelargoniums, go for some of the large flowering unique sort of scented types like bolero. There's Orsett, another big one, Ashby. A lot of these were varieties bred by a lovely lady called Edna Popplewell. She bred a lot of sort of hybrid Regals scented varieties, and they're brilliant. And it's something that I was wanting to do, of course, last year. And my giant, let's just move this great thing out of the way now that I've finished doing that. Now you may remember I did get a giant seedling from Orsett. I only managed to get one. I had a really weak one which I sort of gave up with really. But this is the result. But yeah, it's starting to throw some bud. And we've got one here. It's strangely just a single bud that's just coming up. And it's just beginning to split. And it is going to be quite a dark purpley colour. So it'll be interesting to see. Unfortunately, I have not got an Orsett bud coming through. I have on a younger, again, standard plant that I'm trying to train up the back there, but it's a little bit behind these. I'm trying to see potentially the difference between the blooms of the Orsett from which it comes and this seedling which is coming out. And I think these are darker. So it'll be interesting to see. They certainly do look quite sizable. So yeah, you know, you can have a look at there. They have very, very big buds, which is a start. I mean, that's what I'm wanting, a large blooming plant. Right, now this was crossed with a regal called Layla, which is a purple bloom with sort of white, sort of lower petals, slightly, but very dark coloured. Unfortunately, again, it's not open at this moment in time. Who knows? I'm hopeful that these aren't going to be too bad. So again, another one there just beginning to split. We'll have to see how that goes. Now, talking of seedlings, I mean, my regal seedlings have started to come out, but one or two that have been quite nice, interesting. Quite impressed with this one. Just shove it down here. This has got quite a nice bloom to it. Yeah, so this is a giant brute, but I particularly quite like this one. Quite deepish red, very dark. Now there is we'll have to see. There's a slight purple infusion in that petal, so we'll have to see how stable it is. But there's a good example there of the actual seedling. Now what I particularly like is something that is inherited from its parent, which I can show you in a moment, is very, very frilly bloom. Very dark, this is quite a dark red, but almost black blotch on the upper petals. So I quite like that one. But the main thing that is clear is that this is such a monumentally strong growing plant. Right, so it was easier for me actually. It's a big standard again, too complicated for me to get it out. I'd have to move half a dozen plants, but there is a bloom from the plant that this came from, and I absolutely love this bloom. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's inherited the frilliness. I love this frilliness on this plant. I think it's absolutely brilliantly coloured. But it's just a shame the history of it is a little bit wayward. But anyway, I know what it is that I bred it from. And this plant has obviously inherited the frilliness. Yeah, so I particularly like this one. And the fact that it's monumentally strong growing. I mean, I've had to put a stake on this. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, another plant that I used for breeding was a plant called Doris Shaw. Now, that is a whitish base with purple sort of blotches on every petal. It's a fairly standard bloom, but what I like about it is a good show plant. But of the blooms that's actually thrown so far, they are pretty much mimicking the actual parent plant, which is interesting. That is almost what the parent plant looks like, to be quite honest. There's a seedling. That's a good growing plant, it has to be said. That's very compact and grows very well. But there seems to have been two sides to this. It's producing a number like this with the blotches on, very much like the parent plant, or is producing seedlings that are very pale and just off white. And there's another one right next to it. I've got a fair number that are fairly similar to this with the blotch of various sizes. But it's interesting that, there seems to be two distinct differences from the one plant. There's ones that are very similar to the parent, and a number of white blooms with just a hint of a magenta sort of flare on them, which is again quite interesting. I mean, this in itself, again, very compact plant, would make potentially good show stock. For me, whether it would get to a stage where I would consider it sort of worthwhile to put forward to 5 bricks to trial is debatable. So yeah, nothing too exciting from those. I have got a number of other various sort of differences between those two, a bit more purple or a bit paler, but I'll wait to put those on in a full review of them on the Pelargonium and Geranium Society when I film that, maybe in a week or two. Now, another plant that I did do some breeding from was a plant called Ada Green, but the blooms that are coming out of that are almost identical to the parent. There's Ada Green. It's quite a dark blooming variety. I can't even remember what I crossed these with now. I think it was a plant called Whisper, which is a red, trying to get some sort of good deep colours of red going in these. But the blooms that have come through so far have been virtually identical. There's Ada Green, the parent, and you can see there's hardly any difference. There's the parent, there's the seedling. Arguably darker at the top petals, which you would expect anyway. But yeah, so yeah, slightly disappointing. We'll have to see. I've got a couple more of those still to come out. Now, I did get one from Ada Green, which was a lovely red, and I was quite impressed with that. Unfortunately, the blooms went over, and I took the bloom off, and the second bloom batch from it are not out yet. So you'll have to wait for the sort of review of those that I do on the Pelargonium and Geranium Society in the next week or two. So there we go then. That's just about it from me today. I thought I'd do a little bit of a catch up on my own channel because I haven't done a video on my own channel for a little while. And yeah, always remember the unique varieties though. They produce some fantastic blooms and they are so easy to grow. If you don't want to do a lot of watering, they're the ones to have a go at. So that's just about it from me today. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye bye for now.